Adam, how we doing? Good to see you, my friend.
It's always great to see you, Tom, especially on this wonderful Tuesday afternoon.
Absolutely. So whether you're watching this recorded, which we know so many folks said, hey, I want to check out the recording, so thanks for recording it, or you're here live with us, thanks for joining us, Massachusetts. What an honor it is to be with you all to talk a little bit about Future Ready Cohort in Massachusetts. We are so excited about an opportunity we have coming up. We're going to keep this short and sweet and to the point because we know it's the end of the day. We know there's so many things on your plate. But for those of you that don't, I guess I should share from the beginning, we are going to record just the first section of this. We'll probably keep it to about 20 minutes or so, maybe 25 tops. And then we will do some Q&A for anybody that's live and has some questions, but we won't record that piece to it. With that, for those of you that may not know, I'm Tom Murray. I'm the Director of Innovation. Future Ready Schools have done a lot of work in Massachusetts, did your principal conference and MassQ and some other things. And I know there's amazing, amazing folks in Massachusetts. So I'm so excited to be with you all. And my colleague, the one and
Greetings,
only.
everyone. I am Dr. Adam Phyall. I am the Director of Professional Learning and Leadership for Future Ready Schools. And I come to you from the South, the deep South, if I have to say, Georgia, Covington, Georgia, also known as the Hollywood of the South. Yes, that's right. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm very excited to be working with each and every one of you, potentially in this cohort that we're going to be doing in Massachusetts. We would like to thank our partners in this process. We have MSAA and MASCD that's going to be working with us throughout this process. So if you remember those organizations, thank you for supporting and the organization, the work that you're doing within the state.
This whole movement really
starts there automatically, Adam. Yeah. So let's jump over to a video to give them a glimpse. Let's hear some from we've done work with Connecticut, which you're going to see a glimpse of, currently Louisiana and a lot of other states. So let us have you listen to some practitioners, and they reflected on their experience. This was our cohort from last fall. So we'll give you a moment to take a listen.
This whole movement really started as a grassroots effort. We had conversations and ended up starting up this cohort that's got now more than a dozen school districts working together to develop strategic digital learning plans.
I've been going to all of the in-person and online experiences, conferences here, and I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about technology, leadership, and today, for example, one of my big takeaways is the framework for having conversations with people about how we can be better together, about how we can get to that place in education where we know that the center is student achievement and it's student success and student health. And we do that by building leadership teams that understand that we have to hold our hands and move forward together, because together we can make anything happen. It's great networking here. It's great meeting everyone and hearing what they're doing in their schools and how they can build their schools to find student success.
It's been a huge benefit to us because it allowed us to network with other districts, to realize that we're in the same position that other districts are in, and to gain the networking ability to help us propel our district to become future ready.
One of the most important things was to start with a strong why statement. We spent a lot of time as a team really developing that, which then in turn helped us to set some actionable goals. When we looked across our strategic school plan, what our survey said, and then when we know our students and teachers need, we were able to create those actionable goals that we know we will use in the future to make sure that we're striving towards achievement for all.
Listening to Jimmy Casas today speak about recalibrating and how to look at things from a different angle and make sure we're really looking at what's the best interest for everybody and putting people at the heart of what we're doing as opposed to just the teaching that we do, and making sure we're doing what we're doing for our kids.
These past 7 months has been an amazing opportunity for our district and for myself as a director of technology. It has given us a great foundation for our district to work off of, not only in terms of technology, but what we're doing with curriculum and instruction, budgeting and resources, and being able to align ourselves not only with our portrait of a graduate, but also what our Future Ready Schools technology plan is going to look like to make sure that we are providing everything we possibly can for our students to be prepared to go out into the community and society and be successful individuals.
It really is a community that builds itself and makes everybody stronger. I would encourage everybody who hasn't considered being involved in a cohort to put it on their priority list to make that commitment moving forward.
You know, every time I watch that video, I'm like, you do a great job of talking about why it's so important to be a part of this. And, you know, we're going to talk about the why and things of that nature, but what are you going to get out of this? Well, one thing that's three things that are really important is the leadership training and the networking that you get as a part of being in this cohort. We have various issues or various concerns. We get to work together collaboratively and come to those solutions to those problems in these cohorts. And one thing that it's not just talking about it, is actually coming away with action planning, having those steps that you can immediately put in place in your district to get results. And we have customized tools that we provide to each and every district that takes part of our cohort that are able to utilize to help build out their plans. So why do you want to join? Well, of course, you get to join. And since time with Tom and myself, you know, who doesn't want to do that? I mean, you know.
The crowd was silent on that one. I know they're all muted, but the crowd was silent, just so you know.
But, you know, you get to work with your colleagues in this space with the work that we're doing. And around that work, you get to work around those problems and help develop those solutions. And one of the things we want to talk about is being able to utilize those CARES or the ARPA funds that you have. And with those funds, you're able to invest those and see immediate results for those investments of those funds. And we want you to be able to identify those needs within your district and then take identify those needs and redesign and better serve each student within your district, because it's all about what you can do for your students. As you heard in the video, they talked about being student-centered, and that is the center and the focus of all the work that we do. And with this training, it's about not only working on being student-centered, but also taking these tools and unlocking those and making sure that all teachers, all members of your organization have access to those resources within the Future Ready framework, because we have these framework that's designed around student-centered, as I mentioned, and we have our gears that we're going to talk about briefly that are the focus of the work that we're doing around the Future Ready framework.
So Adam, if we're going to create a cohort with district teams from around the state of Massachusetts, who should be on a cohort team from a district?
Well, we want to ensure that it's not just your superintendent or your technology people, because a lot of times people think future ready, they think about technology and they want to ensure just the technology folks, but it's more than that. We want to ensure that your team has your superintendent, your CIO, CTO, director of technology or instructional technology, whatever you have in those districts, your technology team members. And we want to ensure that there's district level administrators are part of this. So all your curriculum directors, people of that nature. We even had one district that had their HR director a part of this. So you determine the individuals that are in your team. We definitely want the school level personnel in there. So your principals, we want to have them in here because we want to ensure that we are having the principals, they are your boots on ground, if you will, in your district. And your professional learning coordinators, because part of our Future Ready framework, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be personalized professional learning. So we want to ensure that our professional learning directors are part of this work, and our instructional coaches, because we even have a strand in our Future Ready framework that's dedicated to our instructional coaches. So these are just some individuals that we recommend, but the key is you determine who needs to be on your Future Ready cohort team, because the team should reflect the needs of the district. So we're asking the district leaders to determine who best fits the needs of their district to be a part of their team.
Yeah, and Adam, and reflecting on that, the cohorts that we've done, Louisiana and Connecticut and National and a bunch of the other ones, they've been anywhere between 5 people on a team from a district end to 10. I think one of the important things for us to point out is that this isn't meant to be a committee of one. Right. Exactly. We all know in our districts, it is impossible to push change as a committee of one and without having other folks there as well. And so some places as well, especially some smaller districts or rural districts that might look at that and say, I don't have all those different levels of admin, have some teacher leaders and those folks, but ultimately the district decides who's going to come together to be able to support this process. And so let me share just a couple pieces of what the cohort will provide over the 6 months or so that we're talking about doing some support to create some plans to support the work moving forward. So first is really a deeper level of support for district teams to leverage the Future Ready framework. You can check that out at futureready.org/framework. It is a framework for transformation. We've had a few thousand school districts across the country leverage that. It is actually the, the one framework that has been signed off by the U.S. Department of Education. It's a framework for transformation because it's very evidence-based. And so in these conversations, what you will not find is go buy the latest technology just to jump on the bandwagon because somebody else is doing it. That is not our approach at all. It is very much, what's the evidence show? How can we do these things well? How do we make sure these conversations are sustainable? What's our vision around the use of technology and our vision for teaching and learning and making learning more personalized and all those different pieces? And so when you look at the Future Ready framework, and I know there's many districts in Massachusetts have used it for a variety of reasons, just very, very quickly, we walk through each month, we walk through different pieces of this and help districts allow the left hand and the right hand to know what they're doing. And Adam and I are both longtime school and district leaders, and we know that sometimes internally the tech department's pointing at the curriculum department, they're pointing at HR, and sometimes that left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. Now, I'll also say, I know there's a lot of great work happening in Massachusetts because I've been on site. I've worked with so many districts. I've done so many convocations and been able to see so many things. And I will say it's also amplifying the great work that's already happening. Knowing Massachusetts, certainly one of the strongest states in our entire country when it comes to education, how do we amplify the positive and make it even stronger while also being honest about some of our needs, right? As great as our districts are, how do we continue to move forward and take off some of those blinders, and having an opportunity to work and network with other districts from throughout the state in a cohort process to identify some of those and to problem some of those around the Future Ready framework. So when you look at the framework, the light blue there, it's the heart and soul of teaching and learning. Adam and I spend one of those very first sessions taking a look at what does the world of work look like in the state of Massachusetts and its projections from the business world and the world of work, and how can we actually look at, well, what's our program set up with in our building? Are we helping to train kids for jobs of yesteryear, or what does the state look like in Massachusetts visioning forward? And we're able to pull from the national level some data and some research on that as an example to help align some plans for teaching and learning. And it's not our job to tell you what to teach by any means, but to support that. If you take a look at the other end, take a look at personalized professional learning, as Adam mentioned earlier, it's the vehicle for the conduit to change. We spend some time on that. How do our personalized professional learning align with some of those pieces? Take a look at the red piece, robust infrastructure. It's certainly been front and center throughout COVID. We've invested a lot of money in that, right? We'll give lots of tools and lots of resources for each of these areas. The orange end, Adam mentioned the CARES funding, the ARPA funds, and those things are starting to dry up, right? If your district hasn't used all your funds already, how do we make sure this stuff is sustainable? And so in taking a look at the framework and looking at some of what we'll talk about, it's innovation and sustainability. And what our districts that we're wrapping up our cohort are doing is being able to go with their action plans for the next 3 years, 5 years in some of these areas, and go to their school board and say, here's our vision, here's our plan, here's the evidence that we have for it based on the assessment that we took, which we'll mention in a moment. And their boards are loving it because it's a comprehensive plan and vision forward, not just we need 3% over here. Very different levels of conversation. So sustainability is key in this as well. In the gray area, the gear there is community partnerships. How are we engaging our community? What does that look like? Green, data privacy. As we do things that are more digital in nature, how do we keep privacy front and center? We have lots of incredible resources and tools related to that. And then the use of space and time as well, learning spaces, and then how do we use time differently? You can check out the framework. The URL is on the screen. It is the bedrock of a lot of what we do because it's very evidence-based in terms of transformation. Another piece related to the cohort is, and being part of the cohort is there's a self-assessment. It's a research-based self-assessment that can help lead to an action plan. And this is kind of what do we get out of this? What's the purpose of this? One of the early things that district teams do is they come together to use a brand new Future Ready assessment, self-assessment. And by the way, it was signed off by the U.S. Department of Education as the one non-Department of Education tool for this type of work, which we were really, really proud of because it's very evidence-based. Districts own their data, and it's totally part of this cohort being able to be included for that. So this district self-assessment that we're able to use, take a look and dive into some data. I'll show you a picture there in a moment to lead to some action planning for your district. What happens is district teams come together and say, where are we? And taking a look at some of these different areas based on the framework that I just shared with you and getting some scores, and then falling on these different areas of the rubric, which also show, hey, if you fell here, here's some next steps. Why don't you try this? This could be a next step for you as part of an overall plan. That vision and that plan go side by side to make sure that we're using every taxpayer dollar well. And we want to make sure that obviously we've got the obligation to do that. Two other pieces from the cohort end that we'll look to really get out of here. Number one is high octane professional learning focused on leadership, innovation, and change. Adam and I get to do a lot of professional learning around the country. I may have worked with some of your districts that are on here already. And with that, number one, we like to have fun. Nobody wants to sit on Zoom and be bored out of their mind, that's for sure. Number two, really create a sense of collegiality with the districts across the state. You know, sometimes those barriers, those highways that can divide districts between them, how do we break some of those barriers down? And so we're going to pull teams together here to be able to break down some of those barriers, talk about some of our needs, talk about some of the great things that we're doing, problem solve them things together. And we'll do some professional learning through the process, give you lots of resources, lots of tools that you can use literally the next day in your district to support it. And then finally, some dedicated time for powerful reflection and networking and sharing within your own team for your district. And so part of each of our meeting each month, which I'll talk a little bit about in a moment here, is some district time to come together. What does this mean for us? What did you hear in the other groups when you were networking with the other districts? How might we implement that? What's that look for us? Is that a strength? Is that a need? What's our vision in this area? What are next steps that we're going to take? There's so many times, having been that district leader, we should get to that. Yeah, we know we need to do that. Yeah. And there's so many of those pieces, it becomes time to say, okay, how do we pull all these pieces together to create that plan for our board, for our community, for ourselves, to say, how are we going to do this in a sustainable way, innovation and sustainability, to ultimately create great experiences for kids. So Adam, what's this going to look like for 2024 for Massachusetts?
So really just wanted to paint the picture for you. So what will this look like? Well, what we have kind of set up is going to be an inclusive full day in-person kickoff, because it is virtual, but we do have in-person events set a part of this process. And so what we're going to do, our anticipated start date for this will be January 2024. We'll have this process starting. And each and every one of our meetings is going to be overlaid using that Future Ready framework that Tom just went over. So we're going to have a chance to do a deep dive into each one of those gears and really focus in on those. So as you showed with the assessment there, you're able to see where your district, where you land in those various gears, and then have the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into each one of those gears. In addition to diving into those gears, we'll be able to pull those future ready resources that we have. You can like overlay those with your plan as you are building those plans out. And as Tom just said, time is of the essence. Time is so important. So you have those 2-hour sessions, not only dedicated to going through the plan and diving deep, but actually working on and fleshing out what that plan looks like for you and your stakeholders within your district. And with all this being said, we want to end around July at your 2024 MSAA event. And that will be the accumulation of the work that we're doing. We're finishing up our New Orleans cohort, and that's going to happen in person at their event, the Q, coming up very shortly. We'll have all the districts kind of working on the end of their plans.
Yeah, one of the things with the cohort, Adam, that I'm reflecting on and thinking of this is we kind of share this out there, and again, in partnership with their great organizations there in Massachusetts, because we're not coming in to try and take over and do, step on anybody's toes by any means. It's a very collaborative effort. And I think that's an important piece. And the other thing is we always give a voice to the cohort. I think part of the power of the cohort is recognizing the incredible expertise that are across that. So we actually start with a survey of like, what are the best times per month to meet, best days of the week? Is it mornings? Is it afternoon? And we pull all of that back to then put out some proposed dates over the 6 months to be able to say, hey, how about this one day, this day here? And we really try and make sure that it works the best that we can for everybody in that. We also use that time that Adam was just sharing very intentionally. We work to make 2 hours feel like 20 minutes because we recognize your plates are all full. The last thing anybody listening to this wants to do is just add and layer stuff on top of it because you've already got too much on your plates. We recognize that. So we encourage and we make sure that it's going to be a good use of your time. And we're going to make sure that it's you walk away with lots of tools, lots of resources, lots of reflection, and also lots of collaboration from other groups around the state. I want to take a moment to show you an outcome from Connecticut. I've mentioned we've done this. Connecticut's obviously so close to you all. You're welcome to pull it up on your end as well. futureready.link/ this is the Westport School District in Connecticut, one of the plans that came out of here. And what I will say before anybody says, oh my gosh, how would we have time to create anything like that? One of the things that I will be really front and center on, and you'll probably hear me say throughout the cohort if you join with us, is we are not here to say, here's exactly how you do it. We create a process for districts to create a plan that goes hand in hand with strategic plans or portraits of a graduate, things that they already have, to create some sort of plan to be able to say, hey, this is what's right for our district. This was one of the plans that came out. We created the process. We gave the assessment. We gave them the roadmap, and then they created what was right for their district. And so just to give a shout out to Westport, you can see this came from one of the ones that we had done. They worked through, again, over a 6-month period to create, and we walked through baby steps kind of each month, what this might look like. And they focused on a couple key areas. Collaborative leadership, that's the outside of the framework. Curriculum instruction and assessment was a focus area for them. Data and privacy was a focus area for them. Infrastructure side was a focus area for them. Some districts choose to use each area of the framework. They just chose 3. These are going to be our focus areas moving forward because they align with our strategic plan, but they align with the work that we've got to get done. And here's tools and resources to make it happen. And by the way, here's the self-assessment that also verified, yeah, here's what we need to really do to make that happen there. So that's one plan you're welcome to check out. I encourage you to take a look at that. We've got many others. And those of us that are part of the cohort actually get access to at least a dozen plans from around the country of other districts saying, here's how we're implementing, here's our vision for each of these different areas. This is the way we're going to take a look at making sure that it happens in a sustainable way. And so that's one plan to take a look at if you're interested in seeing an outcome based there. But again, we've also had districts that it's a Google Doc and say, here's our plan. We're going to be sharing with our community. We're going to share with our board. And again, boards love to see visions and plans for sustainability. And that is a huge part of this. And we all know we've spent so much money on ed tech and so much money in the last number of years throughout COVID, and those wells are drying up. What's our plan to make sure that we can continue to move forward in a sustainable way with all the things that we have that also have to be replaced? And so that's a big part of making sure we've got a really good plan for that. So with that, part of it is, well, what's the cost? What does this boil down to? And Future Ready Schools, up until these cohorts, everything we've always done, we've raised money for, fully up to that. But as you can imagine, I'm sure you can imagine, to do a 6-month cohort with multiple things in person isn't feasible for us to do totally for free, as I'm sure that you can imagine. So the cost for districts, that's the whole team. This is not per person, it's the whole team, which includes the in-person events, which, as you know, when you have space and coffee and lunch and all those things, there's hard costs to that. And then 6 months with Adam and I baby step and walking you through a process for district teams is $6,500. But what we are offering to get a good number here, because we also have to cap the cohort at a number of districts, is districts that decide in the first week after tonight. We're going to be sharing this out with superintendents across the state and tech directors across the state. Those of us that commit before November 21st, we're going to give a 10% discount to lower that to $5,850. Again, that's for the whole team for the whole 6 months to support the work, support the professional learning, the resources, the tools, the in-person events, and those things as well. If you're interested in doing that, futureready.link/MA commit. That is going to be the link. We'll also follow up with everybody that registered related to that as well to have that link. Obviously, you can't decide by yourselves. We know that to have conversations with your teams. My email address and Adam's email address will be coming up here in just a moment. But let us give you the timeline. Adam, what's this timeline here for kind of commitment until what we're anticipating here?
So ultimately, we want to make sure we have those commitments in. So we're looking to get those commitments for the cohort by December 8th. And as Tom mentioned earlier, what we'll do is send out a survey for our in-person meetings, because what we want to do is go ahead and have those dates lined up so you can go ahead and lock those into your calendar, dedicate that time for your teams to either meet in person as we have our virtual meetings, or to have that dedicated space to do that. And then in January, we'll have our in-person virtual kickoff session. In February through June, we'll have those 2-hour cohort meetings, as we mentioned earlier, ending with our July wrap-up meeting and celebration, because you got to celebrate those victories, because that's the whole thing. It's not necessarily the destination, it's that journey. And so we're going to celebrate, of course, throughout, but we're going to have that celebration at the end when we have completed this this portion of the cohort.
And finally, and we said 25 minutes, and we were right at the 25-minute mark. We also want to give you this presentation so that you can bring back to your team. If you go to futureready.link/MA slides, that is there. And also the recording that we have here will be available as well. We're going to do a Q&A in just a moment, but I do want to throw out, because we're going to pause the recording for anybody that's on the line that wants to do a Q&A. We're not going to record that part. If you want to reach out to me directly, again, I'm Tom Murray, Director of Innovation. You can see tmurray@allfored.org. You can see Adam's contact information there. there as well. Phyall is at allfored.org, and Sarah Hall is the executive director. You're welcome to reach out to us. We're happy to hop on a call prior to that, and we have specific questions there as well. So I hope you'll join us. We're excited about this opportunity in Massachusetts. Reach out to folks in Connecticut or Louisiana, the Northeast cohort that we did. They might know that they took part, ask them questions, great feedback, but we're excited to partner with many districts across Massachusetts. We are going to limit it at 20 districts because we want it to be a very intimate type of feeling. We can't have 1,000 people here. That is not the goal on our end. So we do place a limit on that. I'm excited to work with y'all. Love the folks in Massachusetts doing incredible things. Let's continue to elevate it and take it to the next level. Adam, final word.
Okay, you kind of checked all the boxes there. I do see we do have a question there. Oh, there's what the URL thrown into the chat, so we can throw that into the chat for you.